Welcome everyone to our webinar this morning on Racing Prodigy data acquisition from AiM Sports. We're going to talk today about just some of the basics of data acquisition, some of the stuff that you're going to be using in the coming days, and give you an idea of what's available to you, just some basics of data acquisition, some concepts, and then at the end of this hour, we'll jump out and get into real-time software and walk through some basic data analysis from the kind of cars that you'll be driving here shortly. So welcome again to joining us. I'm happy to have everybody here from all around the world. We're been looking forward to this for quite some time to help out whenever we can. It's part of our duty as folks that are in the motorsports industry. So we're going to talk about a little bit about where we're going to go today, just so you have an idea and kind of plan ahead towards that. Is what is data acquisition? We're going to talk about, kind of a bland topic, I suppose, for some, especially if you had some into it. But I'm going to give a couple of twists on that. Why use it, and then how to use it. You know, everything to me is kind of fits in these boxes, and it makes it easier for me to remember under the stressful times of motorsports. But what is it, why use it, and how to use it are really the core of what we talk about here quite a bit. We're going to talk about data concepts, and we're going to get into this a little bit deeper here in a few slides. But again, you're going to see this little trend of 3 ways to remember things for me. But when you get a data file and you start to dig into it, the number one thing I always do is what happened. Did I go faster in turn 6? Was I slower here? Was my speed higher? Was my lateral G's better? All these different things. What happened? And then I want to take it to the next level. Where did it happen? Let's say you're quicker in turn 6. Did it happen at the apex? Did it happen because of the braking coming in? Did it happen because of something you did from the middle out? That where did it happen becomes very, very important to the next one, which is why did it happen? And if you can't get to the why did it happen, you as drivers can't then adjust what you're doing in the car, the part that you have the control of while you're out on the track, of being able to understand, okay, why was it faster here? Well, or why was it slower? What can I do to fix that and make that go faster? We're always looking for those tenths of a second. I always think of data analysis, and again, a 3-sided triangle. I call it the data triangle. We're really looking for 3 things when we do data analysis. We're looking for driver performance, to improve that. We're looking to improve vehicle performance, and we are looking to make sure that the vehicle health is okay. And if you keep those 3 things in mind, everything you do, if you think about it, everything that you're looking at in data fits into one of those. Some of them fit into 2 of them at the same time. Let's say, I know we're talking about more driver focused stuff here, but if you think about, the tune on the engine, and if the vehicle health is such that the water temperature is hot, or the air fuel ratios are too low, well, that's an engine problem, but it's also a vehicle performance problem, right? So if we can fix those, your vehicle performance and your vehicle health, that one fits into both. So, and we're going to do a lot of this with real data analysis examples. We are going to go through the old PowerPoint for a while, but we just to get the points across, and then we will jump into live data. Okay, let's go to the first slide. Give you just a little bit of an idea about me. I've been a racer most of my life. Most of my time was spent in off-road as a driver personally, and raced a lot of short course and desert, the Baja 500 and things like that. That's the kind of stuff that I did, was in off-road. I did a little bit of circle track pavement racing with a friend that had a car. And then I got old enough, and I aged out of the ability to do that. It wasn't fun as much for me. So I had a son that came along, and I kind of mentioned it earlier that that's how I got tied in with David and the Mazda group. My son won the 2006 SCCA runoffs in Topeka, Kansas, and with that was recognized and brought into the Mazda driver development program and won the very first year that they did it for the closed wheel folks. So then that started an entire sports car racing kind of a side of everything. So and he was in that for about 10 years. So a lot of experience in doing data and working with my son in that, and many others, obviously. And then I've been working for AiM for about 12 years now as the national training manager, and traveling all over North America. That's where our area is, to give training and support for the software and the hardware. So gives you just a little bit of an idea of my background. Where do we start? What is data acquisition? Again, we're going to be pretty fundamental here, but it drives to a bigger point. So if you think about different methods of data acquisition, we focus so much on the electronics and the hardware, but that seat of the pants is really the very first method that racers had, and it is almost as important now as it was then. And so I always like to list that seat of the pants. What did it feel like to use? What's perfect to an engineer may not fit what you're trying to do. So always keep in mind that seat of the pants is a method of data acquisition. Of course, the stopwatch, that's the end. That's the main focus of everything we do. When you get out of the car, we don't ask you a bunch of different questions, but we talk in seconds and tenths of a seconds, hundredths of a seconds of your lap time. So that stopwatch is a form of data acquisition. Video become more and more important all the time. As the prices come down, and the different ways of looking at video, especially smart video, where we tie in maybe some sensor data that's embedded into the video, lateral G's or steering position angles, and throttle and brake, and of course speed and all the rest of them. That video is a very worthwhile tool, and the younger generation now, that may even become to be a bigger part of your data acquisition tools. And of course, the data acquisition systems, which we're going to talk about today, both hardware and software. We're going to focus way more on the software today, but you have to get that data out in order to get there, right? So many different ways of looking at data. Always keep these in mind while we are going to be looking at on laptop screens and look at squiggly lines. There are other things that you should be feeding into your data acquisition in real time. What I always look at data as just another tool in the toolbox. You may sense a trend here, right? Data is important, but there's other things that we do. It's just like an engine or a shock dyno. That data system is just measuring and recording performance. And when it's first going into that black box that's in that's in the car, it doesn't know at that point whether it's driver induced speed or slowness, or it doesn't know if it was the vehicle that it's measuring. It's really measuring both, right? It's measuring that overall performance. And that's all the box knows. In 1 millisecond I was here, the next millisecond I was here, and here's what all these sensors were doing at that time. Think of data at that way. It's just bringing in all this information. All of that stuff is happening, and the software is what allows us, you and I, to be able to jump in there and say, okay, I don't care about water temperature at this point. I don't care about oil pressure. I do care about steering, throttle, and brake pressure, because I'm working on the driver today. I'm working on that, remember that three-sided triangle, that driver performance, vehicle health. A lot of what you're going to be doing is looking at that driver performance for the task that you're in for the next few weeks. So always be thinking of that data is all out there. It's just the software is helping us bring it out, and getting better at this software will allow you to get better at bringing that data in and using it in a useful way for yourself. Just briefly, the concepts of how this thing works, when it comes to software, we have some pre-session software, we have some post-session. You're going to be working on the post-session stuff the most, but the configuration side, we get in there, and these cars have AiM data loggers on there. Some of them have PDMs. There's a bunch of different things. All of that has to be configured, and the software is used to do that, to configure all of that stuff zero out your steering sensors and all the different things it has to go, give you some lights and some shift lights and alarms, make sure everything is set up. Of course, then you go out on the track and then we get the data, and then that's when we do the post session or the data analysis piece of it, right? We have lots of functions in there, and we're going to show you quite a few of them here today. There's measure plots, the squiggly lines as we like to call them, XY plots, channel reports, of course, the video being tied in with it. We're going to show you how that all works as well today, and show you some of the benefits that you'll be able to get from that. So there's it's really a package deal that's getting the end at the thing that you really want at the end, which is, okay, where's my 5 or 6 laps I just did? Let me look them over with my driver coach and figure out exactly what happened and where can I improve. So what is data acquisition? To kind of close up this, what is data acquisition? Data is nothing more than knowledge. And as it says down below, knowledge equals speed. How fast do you want to go? There is only so much you as a driver can absorb while you're driving about these other things. They're happening very, very quickly. You are 100% focused on getting the most out of the car. Meanwhile, you come back, and I have that discussion all the time with drivers where they say that the car is loose on exit. It had oversteer on exit, but what they didn't know, what they didn't recall, or because there's so much coming at them, that car being have oversteer from the middle of the corner out was because of the understeer that was happening first. And the first thing that they recalled in their memory was the oversteer. There is just so much coming at you that we can back out of it in the data and try to understand what happened and why it happened, right? So data is knowledge, and it's out there for you either in data or in the video. And in Race Studio 3's case with Smarty Cams, we put them both together, and you'll see that it's like in the picture there. We'll take a look at that. Why use it? Well, the biggest thing is to constantly improve. You guys are all very good at what you do, but you must continuously improve in motorsports. In life, you must continuously improve, but the motorsports brings that to an even sharper focus. And so again, back to the things that you want to improve: driver performance, vehicle performance, and your vehicle health. And if all 3 of those come together and they are improved, results will improve. And that's really what we're really after, right? So as it says across the bottom, with the proper and consistent use of data, your race program will improve. You have more knowledge, you have more things to draw on, you make better decisions on not only yourself, how do I attack turn 1 in a different way? How do I get on the throttle earlier, get on the throttle later, and back to the car? How do we set up the car a little bit better? All of this knowledge coming in allows the engineers to make these better decisions, which brake pads to run. I mean, all of this is gained knowledge, and data is one of the main tools to do that. I mentioned my son this is him sitting here in this picture right here at 16 years old at the very first Mazda driver development meeting, as he was talking about data with the team that was set up to choose who was going to win that weekend. So thought I would leave that picture in because it was interesting compared to what you guys are going through. Okay, so really kind of what you guys came here for, right? Although I think having that little bit of background and just some nuggets of information of things for you to think about, but how do you use this? What value? How do you get value out of this tool that is watching over your shoulder? Sometimes 100 times per second watching what you're doing. It can sometimes feel like it is the enemy, right? Or but you can't allow it to do that. In motorsports, data should be, and your data analysis person, just like your driver coach, just like the interior guy, whoever ends up working with you, they're all there to help you and make sure that you get there. But sometimes it comes with this critique, and and it's up to you to be able to take that in correctly and understand it and say this, it's always for the better of the speed of you as a driver. So that's always a touchy thing. Of course, there's a lot of pressure, but boy, please keep that in mind as you go, that while data is sitting there telling you where you're good and where you're bad, it's there to help you eventually turn all the bad stuff into the good stuff and go faster. Okay. How do we use this? Here's another one of those little charts that just is we shot about it, but again, just trying to plant the seed that there's just a process in everything. We have hardware and we have software. And the basic steps of this is we need to design a system, a data system, you do, and install it, configure it, and calibrate it. And when I say design it, you let AiM take care of the bigger piece of that. With the design part, and the teams that are prepping the cars that have already done this, they have selected the right system that will do all the things that they want to do, shock pots and all these different things. Design that system so it gets the data that you need in order to do what you do out of it. That's been done. They've installed it, they've configured it, and then they've calibrated it and had it ready to go, or will when you get there in a couple of weeks. Then you go out on the track and you use it. And here's where this ends up in a small loop that should be your focus as you get out of the car every time. You use it, it gets downloaded. You go into the software, analyze the Race Studio 3 analysis, and you ask yourself 3 questions. Back to this 3 questions triangle kind of a thought process. It gives you an idea of how much I can remember at one time, right? But what happened? What happened? Was I faster in turn 3? And then where did it happen? Okay, it was in turn 3, but it was from the exit out. That kind of where, not just where out on the track, but where in the process. That will be very helpful for the last one. I've already mentioned it a couple times, but why did it happen? Everything we're doing here today is going to be to answer those 3 questions, with the most important one being the third one. And when you get done with, once you understand those 2 or 3 areas on the track that you really wanted to focus on from that last session, and you understand what happened, where did it happen, why did it happen, and what actions you're going to place into to help yourself get faster in those areas, then you come over here and you repeat. You go right back up to the use, and you do this piece of it just time and time and time again. Right? There's other things happening in there. The crew is adjusting things. You're thinking things through. You're doing whatever you do, but this is really the rinse and repeat loop of what data really is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more detail about some of these basic data analysis steps. I've already mentioned them a little bit, so we'll go through them fairly quickly here to get into the live data. But the first thing you're doing is what happened. And as I've got marked out here, many stop right there, right? They say, okay, you're faster in turn 6, and you're a little late on the brakes into turn 1, let's say. And some drivers, and not too many coaches certainly, but some drivers will go, oh, okay, that's I need to be a little bit later on the brakes in turn 1. Okay, I'll take care of that. But really, don't stop there. You have tools to dig in a little bit more. Where did it happen? Was it where did it happen? Did you move left or right? Why did you choose to do that? Was there other cars around you? Why did that where did that happen? And then why? And then sometimes it's a 5-second process to walk through these steps, but in the end you need to be thinking this way, very analytical. What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? Why would I do that? And then put it in your mind that this is how you're gonna solve this problem. And there's always one probable additional question that probably should ask. All of this happened, but was it the vehicle or was it the driver? If we're using that same analysis of turn 1 braking, we see that the brakes were applied maybe a little bit too late, too early, whichever it happens to be. And then you have to ask yourself, or the team and your group, is the driver reacting to the vehicle? Did you get on the brakes earlier because the brakes are starting to fade because of whatever reasoning? Or did you just get on the brakes a little bit late because you were checking your mirrors and making sure that the person behind you wasn't thinking about diving in there, and you just missed the braking point. These are critical things of understanding that why, in order to then make the fix and be better the next time out onto the track. So keep that in mind. What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? And is the bigger part the car? Do I need to fix the car, or do I need to fix the driver? And then that will help you understand it better. And the more open mind you have in these, then that small step is the faster and better data is going to work for you. I do everything on what I call the money channels. There's got to be a hierarchy. We can't sit and study this data for 3 hours after you get out of the car. There are times to do that in between weekends, dig in even deeper, but at the track, we have to get in there and we have to have crucial points of importance. And two of those things to me are the money channels. Those are the ones that everything is based on that. And I call those the two money channels for me are lap times and speed. This motorsports, it is a speed game, right? So we really need to make those two be better. We have sometimes hundreds of other channels of data. In the data we're about to look at, I think there's 40 or 50 additional channels of data. Every one of those channels is important. It's there for a reason. But in reality, what they really do, and this is just a mindset for you to be thinking, every one of these other channels are doing nothing more than supporting your ability to understand why you are faster or slower, either in lap times or in speed. So all of those other channels, and I will show you how I do it here in just a moment, but I open up a basic speed trace to begin with. Speed trace 2 of your laps, or your competitor lap, or last session versus this session lap on top of each other, see where the difference is, and then start throwing these other channels at it to understand why you are faster or slower. The money channels, always be trying to improve the money channels. And again, the data performance, the data analysis triangle, I mentioned it once, but we'll mention it one more time. There are 3 things we're working on: driver performance, vehicle performance, and vehicle health. You're going to be focusing probably, I assume, most of the time on the driver performance piece, but never forget that you can help fix the car, make the car better, or make sure the car finishes races by checking, some things which we will talk about. I have some shortcuts for that in some of our live data. Okay. Let's jump out and look at some live data and get an idea of how this works. I'm glancing over at you guys. How many of you have AiM Race Studio data analysis experience? How many of you guys have experience using the data? If you just wave a little bit if you have any. How about any other form of data analysis experience? I know a lot of you come from there. You go, a few of you. Perfect. So you understand some of the basic squiggly line pieces. You may not understand fully which buttons do what inside of the AiM side, right? So the ability to use that data, I would think that it is going to be critical for you to go ahead and grab that data and video sample. There's lots of, I'll talk about it a little bit more right at the end. We have done a ton of videos on YouTube that shows how to do the import and break some of the basic things of that you may not get out of this, because we're focusing on analyzing data for driver speed. But if you need some help, text me or email me, and we can find you some of the appropriate training materials if you haven't used it very much. So let's jump out of there. Let me jump right over to Race Studio 3. Let me clear that message. This is the Race Studio 3 software. Free software download from aimsports.com is the North America. If it's virtually the same website at the aim-sportline.com, the Italian site. But you can grab this software for free. It's Windows only, so you have to have a Windows PC in order to get that, or even have Windows emulated and running on your Mac if that's what you have. But it is Windows. And what you get to do is you get to bring in the data. I'm going to jump over here to, this is what the database will look like. I've got it thinned down from a bunch of data that I have over here to just just this session that we're going to look at today. And then you just simply click on the data file, and it will open up. And like almost all data systems, it opens up and typically opens up in the last view you were in. We do that as well, and opens up the best lap of the session. And you'll notice that there is a video file over here as well. And with Race Studio 3, if you had a Smarty Cam, and I think all of the cars there do, if you have a Smarty Cam on the car hooked to the AiM data logger with just a cable, so it's sharing data, brake pressures and throttles and all the different stuff. If those were connected during the run and you drag and drop both of them into Race Studio 3 to load them, the video gets automatically attached to the data. So now if I can click in here to this speed trace at the top of this, and as I drag this along, the video is directly synced to the data file we look at. So if I have a question about this exit of this corner, we can put the cursor right there, and there's the video is there, and we can either play the video and the cursor moves along with it, or we can drive it by pushing the mouse in here and driving back and forth here. You can do it with cursors on the keyboard and mouse driven. So very, very cool when you get everything that is synced. So the video here on the right is synced with the data, the squiggly lines over here. There's a track map down here in the corner. I've got it fairly small. We could make it bigger, but you can see the dot that is on the track map of where that was. And if I wanted to see where it is over here on the exit, I can just click on the track map here. You notice that the cursor just jumped to that in the data, and the car jumped to that spot. So everything is dynamically linked. Very, very helpful to you as a driver because this is more or less what you see, right? Your head's down over here, but more or less what you see, and we could make that bigger by just resizing the screen, and then get an idea of exactly where you're at on the track, and apexes and braking zones. We can see the brake pressure hitting, or we can have the data here inside the Race Studio time distance graph, having the brake pressure come up and seeing exactly how much brake pressure was right there. Down this button on the bottom down here is the lateral G's, and you can see that if I was dragging it over, and you can see the car in the video start to leave the right edge and start to turn into the corner right there, right? I'm backing it up and going forward, and boom, it just starts to turn away. That happens, and you can see down here in the lower left corner, that's exactly when the lateral G's start to build. So it's a tool for you to be able to come in, find the area that you were looking for, and get a good understanding. And the track map is obviously on the video as well, and that'll be dependent on how the team has set it up, but almost always we put a track map up there and a nice basic package of gauges. In this case, with these cars, if I get in here into a corner, I just placed it right there. You can see the driver's hand right there behind the RPM gauge, the tachometer, and you can see that driver turning the wheel back and forth with their hand. Right there, you can see it a lot. Hand is behind the graphics. If I were a data guy and I was there working with the team, I would take this package of gauges and I would move them over here out of the way. I really would love to see even more of what the driver's hands are doing. Just from a good driver coaching standpoint, and self-coaching from your standpoint, you'd want to see what your hands are doing. Okay, so little things like that. Okay, so we've got some data. What do we look at? What's important to us? What the rhetorical question for you guys right now, but where would we need to go? What would we want to do? What do we look at in this data? Data can be used with some skill. You can just look at a single lap and start to pull some things out of it, or there's the power of looking at multiple laps of the session, you against yourself, right, and go from there. Or if you have teammates, laying driver A on top of driver B and then getting an idea of where the differences are. We're going to simulate a little bit of that by doing multiple laps here, but we're going to start off with just looking at one lap, in this case the best lap of this driver in this session, And we're just going to just kind of move around in the software a little bit and give what a data guy might do if they brought this data up to you right off the bat, or you're handed the data file. What should you look for, right? We've got about 20 or 30 minutes here where we can kind of just dig through about I got 4 examples in my mind that we will chat about, and then we'll kind of open it up for some questions there at the end. What we're looking at here is a speed trace on top. I almost always put the speed trace on top. It's just like sits there. It's my go-to. I can see braking, I can see acceleration, braking, all the areas. I can see a long curve straightaway, driver's flat to the floor. This is gear position in the second window, and this is throttle position. This is brake pressure, and this is lateral G's. What we really like to see, kind of a home page for the driver, is whatever the driver inputs are. So you are doing things with your feet, and you're doing things with your hands, right? And in a perfect world, we would have that bit of information because that's how you're manipulating the car. And in this particular data file, the steering trace seems to be steering sensor seems to be broken. So the next best thing, and we always got to go to the next best thing. It's motorsports in general, right? You never give up. So okay, the steering didn't work. What's the next best thing to tell us what you did with the steering wheel? You're affecting the lateral G's. So that's the one that I have included in here for this to understand where this driver has placed the car. So we start just to study this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and in certain areas, and just to start to get an idea of what the driver was doing. Let's look at some things that catch our eye. First thing is, and again, there are data guys like myself, and you're going to have some at some point, obviously. And then there's driver coaches. And while those two kind of merge a little bit, a driver coach will use data and video a lot. A data guy will step into and see some things and say, this is an action you're doing to try to help you. But the data guy, myself here today, there's only so much I know. What I do know is these data traces may show some things. I may not know how to coach you into it because I'm the data guy, right? But so there is this relationship between the two, and we do wear the same hats at some time. So one of the things that just caught my eye, it may be small, but you see this throttle position? You're coming off of, I'm going to zoom in on that area just to make it a little bit clearer, and we can pull this data over. So we're right here in this corner. The driver goes to throttle up, and then sits there. And by the way, this throttle position trace is while I'm going to zoom back out, you can see that it's definitely at full throttle. There's a flat plateau across the top. The data shows it as only 60.3. Don't get hung up on that. It's not 100%. It's clearly the driver has it to the floor. And then so that's your new baseline, right? And you're really looking for shape, and what that really looks like is what you're thinking about as you look at it. Notice this one though comes up to full throttle and doesn't quite get there. It's small. It's a small amount. Here we are at 57.6. and full throttle is 60%. It is in a big long sweeper, and the driver just probably didn't quite get the throttle pedal quite to the floor. There may be some flex inside the car at that point. I do not know. It's just something that your eye should catch. It is a little bit different than the norm. That's what your eye should be looking for, is things that aren't quite exactly like they should be. Okay, so that was just one, just to give you an idea. Here's some braking. This is the first braking zone. I don't know how many have been to Atlanta Motorsports Park yet, but this is the front straightaway past the start finish line down here in the lower left, and then you come into this tight left hand, fairly high speed entry into this, and then you have to hit the brakes and get ready to turn to the left. It's the biggest braking spot on the track, and so that's one of the ones that we always focus on. How are you doing on brakes? Let's look at this good straight line braking area. I'm going to zoom in on this braking zone just to get a quick look at it. Everybody sees that we're coming from I know a lot of you probably work in kilometers per hour, but we're miles per hour with this data file. But again, just a number in effect, right? But so 115 miles per hour, we're trying to pull down to about around 40 miles per hour. So we're pulling a lot of speed out of the car, and the driver has hit the brakes. And just a couple things I notice about this: there is a big hit, again, visually, just for you to be thinking about what should I be looking for. You've got this hit in the brake pressure. You've got a release of the throttle. You've got a application of the brakes. Couple things that we might want to do there is, let's zoom in. One of the things you might want to do is, here's where the driver starts to release the throttle, right? We want no coasting. We want to just double check that the driver is fast as getting off the throttle and to the brakes, being that aggressive, being the, challenging the car, challenging the corner. Look how quickly the driver is coming off the throttle and how the braking is coming up. Clearly a left foot braker, using 2 feet. And we can see that from, we're about 7/10 of a second past the start finish line. Start finish line is right here. So 7/10 past the start finish line, he lifts his brake, lifts off the throttle, starts the lifting, and he is at full brake. Again, 76 hundredths, and he is at full braking by 91 hundredths. So less than 2/10 of a second, he has gone from full throttle to full brake. Just something for you as a driver that you should probably understand and make sure that you are doing some of those basics correctly. And just a very quick way of doing that. We have a tool. I'm going to put that back up here at the top of the throttle position. We have a tool. It's this little red triangle that does measures for us. I just did the math in my head. Always dangerous for me, but I put this, what I'll call the anchor point. I'm going to click on this tool, and now I'm going to click on at the full brake point. You'll notice now that there's 2 lines with some lines in between. And what this right-hand side does is it tells us the time and difference between these 2 lines that I placed on there, from full throttle to full brake. Now we can even closer see that 0.168 of a second and 28.1 feet at 114 miles per hour is how quickly the driver went from full throttle to full brake. Just an example of things you can do in the software to double check yourself and make sure that you, maybe if you have another driver, or something you focused on trying to do in the second or third session, your driver coach maybe said, hey, you need to be a little quicker on your feet, or maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe you're hitting the brake before you get off the throttle. That happens sometimes the opposite way, and that really screws with the chassis, right? It doesn't know if it's going or coming. So, something to look at. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. Now the driver comes along, and downshifts start to happen as he's coming into turn 1. And one of the things that you should look at pretty quickly is your brake pressure should be, you should get brake pressure, and then it should be a nice steady release down to the corner. And this is the brake trace here of pressures. And you can see when the driver initiated a downshift, this is a blip on the throttle. It probably is an auto blip, but I don't understand the car as well, but you can make some assumptions. But even with that, look at the brake pressure. The driver was not really concise and really good on holding that brake pressure steady. Went from a high of 341 psi down to right next to it 232 psi. That's a 340 to 230. That's 20% decrease in brake pressure. That's something a driver should work on, and that's something we are able to see in just a single piece of data on this driver's best lap. Did pretty good on the middle downshift, the downshift from 4th to 3rd. I'm not seeing that same problem, but then we see it again a little bit here, the dip in the brake pressure, and we see it again right in here. Okay, none of it terrible. This is actually, I had to work pretty hard to find things in this data to be able to coach on. So because the driver's pretty good, but the but when you find something, you see it, I wanted to share it with you and start to get an understanding of what is going on here. So that's another thing you can look for in your data that that should be good. And brake pressures, the think about what throttle on, steering, and brake, the driver inputs, do to the car. I always use my phone as the chassis, right? If the car is moving this direction and you're coming along and you hit the brakes, weight transfer happens, right? You load the front tires more. And if you start to release on that brake partway through the braking zone, the car will start to release some front end weight and then hit it again, and you begin this process of all four tires are getting changing loads as we head into the corner. Straight line braking, yeah, if you're at the limit, this is going to be a problem. If you're just below the limit, it's probably hidden from you a little bit. It's not the end of the world. Then you start this trail braking effect. You start turning in, and now you're still on the brakes, and you've got it loaded. Now the right front tire, let's say it's left-hand corner, you're loaded up because you're turning to the left and you're braking. So the right front corner is getting an extraordinary amount of load on the right front tire, all because of what your hands and feet are doing. And now if you're not being consistent, now all of a sudden the loads are going up and down on that tire, and we will see drivers complain about they lift off the brakes as they're right when they go to turn in, they'll just dump the brake pressure. You see a little bit of that here, right here. The driver dumps brake pressure right when the driver is turning in. This is lateral G's. And if you dump the brake pressure after having load up on that right front tire heading into this corner, right as he's turning in, this right front tire is being loaded. And then as he drops off the brakes, that nose is going to come up. It's going to push weight to the rear. All of a sudden, that right front tire doesn't have the grip it had a minute ago, and it starts to understeer on the way in. It might be a car thing. It might be the driver induced. Remember, we always talk about that three-sided triangle. The data is trying to find driver performance, and vehicle health. This might be a sign of maybe this is why this car is understeering a little bit going into the corner. I'm not sure if it was or not, but again, giving you some concepts to think through as you're looking at your data. What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? Did the driver create the problem, or did the car create the problem? Those are your 5 steps you're going to walk through on every piece of data analysis you're going to do. Okay. Let's look at, let's jump out to a full lap again. Boom. And then, and we can go check another, we'll just go check another braking zone just for fun. I don't know exactly what happened here, but as a data guy, I see the downshifts coming into this this hard braking zone right here. Quite a bit of brake pressure for, again, if we wanted to do some quick measuring, how long is he on the brakes? He's on the brakes for about 209 feet, or almost 2 seconds of braking. Okay. And in the middle of that, he hit a hard spike right off the bat, then pulled down on the brake pressure a little bit, released this foot just a little bit, started off with a peak of 308 down to 250, and then it builds up a little bit through the first downshift, and then there's this big old release. Now that release, I don't know what that was. We could probably watch the video, talk to the driver. He may have just saw that he had got on the brakes a little bit too hard and was, just modulating the brake, may have had a lockup. I don't know yet, right? I want to point out some things that if you see with your eyes, this is something that is not the perfect way of providing braking for the cars going into the corners. This should come up. It should have a bit of a plateau, nice and flat, and then it should have a nice trail to nothing and no huge drop off right at the end when you're turning in, because of that. Remember, you're working the weight of you're working the chassis. And I have a term that I've always used is if your pedals are moving too fast and the chassis is, some chassis are stiff. Karting, you can get away with it a lot, but if you are too quickly moving things around, once you get suspension like we have in these cars, you're pissing off the platform. That platform is, all of a sudden it's up, and then all of a sudden you dump a bunch of weight off of the front end, and you wonder why it'll understeer, or you throw a bunch at it while you're trying to turn, you hit the brakes after you turn in, all of a sudden you've overloaded that outside front tire, and then all of a sudden it can't handle it. Understeer starts to happen. So understeer can be from the car, or it can be from the driver, can be helping to create it. So think about that. Okay, the next step, just as a logical way through, we're kind of running out of time a little bit. Let's add a second lap in from this car, from this driver. So let's just add in, he had done 4 laps, and the fastest lap was the 4th lap, and the next best lap was this 3rd lap. I want to introduce one of the most powerful tools in all of the data softwares. Certainly it is in Race Studio. We call it the time compare bar. When you add a second lap, you get a bit of a shortcut in finding the difference between the laps. And it's always right down here at the bottom. And in Race Studio, we call it the time compare bar. And you select which lap is the lap that is the reference lap. I'm going to make the reference lap the best, and it's these little eyeballs. The red one is the reference lap. So I just clicked on that. The blue lap is the fastest of the two. We now are comparing the red lap against the fast one. Okay, you notice the blue lap is flat, the red one is moving up and down. If you're above the blue one, you're slower, and if it trends up, you're slower yet. If it's trending back down, you're faster than the blue one. But until you cross over that blue one and get below it, your cumulative time is still slower, if you understand what all that means. But what really is cool about this is a quick visual. Help me, all of you, take a look at this. Of course, you're tied at the start finish line, right? The difference between the two is 0.000 seconds. Okay, because it resets at the beginning of every lap. Now we're coming along, and while we can't even hardly see a difference in the speed traces, the red lap is already, and we're talking to small amounts here, but 0.97 behind. Okay, just there must be if I back up over here, the red one towards the end of the braking where the cursor is, I could look at other spots, but he's 1 mile per hour slower under braking. That is creating a loss of time. And this shows where the big and small loss of times happen. Your job, because we don't have as much time as we like between runs, you look down at this bar when you're comparing your own laps or comparing against other drivers, and you look for the biggest loss of time right there. Can everybody see it? It's in this area right here. The driver went from being 0.03 behind on the red lap to not very much farther down the road, 0.3, almost 32 hundredths behind. That time compare bar, you could study all of these traces up here, the speed, gear position, all of these things, and it is much faster to look down here than go to the money channels, right? So what happened here? I want to know, in my mind, what happened in this area for the driver to lose that much time that quickly in that area of the track. So we put our cursor in there and we come up to our money channel, speed. Okay, what happened? Where did it happen? What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? Right? That's the path we're always going to go down. What happened? Lost some time. Where did it happen? Okay, let's zoom in on this area. What I've got listed is the 4th segment in here. It may not be based on the lap numbers, but it is this blue segment right here is where we're working this great big long 180 degree plus turn to the left entering it. And so let's zoom in on that a little bit and try to understand what happened with I'm going to roll this over to the middle just to make it a little easier to see. What happened coming up to this corner and then coming out? We can clearly see, our eyes, probably the first thing you saw was the red line being below the blue line. And we're talking, almost 3 miles per hour, right? All the way from here, all the way, gets a little closer at the top, and sometimes traces do that, but till the next braking zone, that just lost time and lost time and lost time. what happened back here where it started? Remember what happened, where did it happen, why did it happen? Okay, let's figure out what happened. Just real briefly, I'm going to zoom in even more to make it even a little bit clearer. The red driver is coming along. Red one is the top video, blue one is the bottom video. We're coming along. The red is a little bit slower in this area, 2 or 3 miles per hour, 2.5, 3 miles an hour, and comes down into this corner towards the ending of his braking and of the deceleration zone. And then right in here, look at the throttle trace. Right at this point here, the red driver, even though looks like he's probably a little bit too far to the left, maybe getting a little too much curb. I don't know where the camera is to the car and that left front tire, but it's maybe on the curb, but it's probably a little on the dirt too. It's hard for me to tell. I don't know the cars well, but the red lap, the driver throttled up a little bit right here. And what does that do? I'm going to get this out of the way. Throttled up a little bit. And what did that do to the speed? It gained some speed right there at the apex, at what we'll call the V min or velocity min. May or may not be exactly the apex, but it's probably close. At that point right there, the red driver is 51-ish miles per hour, a little bit below 49. So it has picked up a little bit of speed, but one of the things your eye should always be looking for as well with data is when a driver goes to apply throttle, the rule of thumb is you apply throttle when you can apply the throttle and not have to back down. Okay. In this case, the driver went to apply throttle, had to release throttle for whatever reason. And if you started to really look at this, and we don't have time to dig in deeper, but the car ends up being a little bit farther out on the track, a little bit too fast through the apex, and the car is pointed a little bit. It has not rotated enough. So he has to roll out of the throttle and then come back to starting to apply throttle. That little bit of a hesitation right there, if I go back to here, let's go right to where he started to give it the throttle, right? Maybe in here, and let's hit the measure button, or what we call the delta function. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to click there. And what we have is the speed. There's a difference. The blue one from this point to this one gained 10.6 miles per hour. The red one only gained 6.2. And so there is a 4 mile per hour difference by this small little release of the throttle on the way out of the corner. That whole thing of getting a little greedy. Race car drivers are paid to get greedy. Don't get me wrong. You absolutely want to get everything you can get. And this driver knew it right off the bat. When you have to do that, you know that you're going to pay a penalty for the rest of this straightaway. Your job is to get it up there where you have gotten back to full throttle as fast as you can and as early as you can, but without the release, because that, again, pisses off the platform, probably starts an understeer, and the rest of that exit of that corner. And then, of course, the payoff process, which is the rest of that straightaway, has to be paid for because of that little error of getting us a little bit too soon. Okay, everybody seen that? Be very careful, be very careful. But again, things you can look for. We talked about a brake application that you can look for, and we've talked about a throttle application that you can look for and see very quickly with your eyes just by looking at those traces and what the payoff or seriousness and deficit in speed that has created. Okay. So the other one that I wanted to do kind of to close it out is I wanted to go back out to a full lap. And I'm going to, since this is only 4 laps of data from this particular session, I'm going to go back into the laps and I'm going to turn on all 4 of the laps. The video gets a little bit small to see, but so I'll open this up a little bit wider so we can see that a little bit more. And we can see another, now that we're here, let's make our best lap again, the reference lap, and look at this orange lap down here in the time compare bar. There is a big change here, right? And if I go there, that orange lap, just in that one braking zone, happened to be not the out lap, but the very first lap that the driver came by at speed. The out lap, we take off and put it off to the side. So it's the first lap down there. Tires are probably cold. Driver certainly is cold, right? But let's zoom in on this area and look at the braking of that orange one. You see how he got on the brakes early? And we're just looking at the speed trace. We could bring up brake pressure and look at it here as well. But got off of it early and came down to meet to the apex. That costs that driver, if we come up to here where the traces finally get back together, that orange lap lost 44 hundredths, almost a half a second, by coming in on the braking early, and your eye should have caught that really quickly in the time compare bar. All of a sudden there was a separation, right? So again, say this was four different drivers that you're comparing against. Quickly, you should have seen who the outlier was. Maybe there was one that was even up higher and still rolled through the corner. When you see good things or you see bad things, you start to focus on them and then say, okay, how do I, you got to be greedy in the driving world, right? How can that, what can I do to make that help me, right? So always keep that in mind. This happens to be the same driver, 4 laps in a row. Obviously, I'll say that a few more times. Okay, so that was kind of an interesting one. And let's back out to the entire area. And there was one other area that I thought might be interesting to look at. That whole braking thing is interesting. There was one other one, I think. Let me look at my note. 2,000 feet or so. Yeah, I think I already chatted about that one. That we can see that the driver on the orange one, remember, we hadn't even looked at the orange one yet, but we did see the red one get on and off the throttle. That was that one we looked at earlier. Look at what the orange one did. He tried his first lap out, and he was the fastest in that particular segment, faster than all the rest of his laps in the middle of that corner, but tried to get after the throttle and then had to wait as well. And what did that do for him? It made him the next to the slowest, actually decent at that spot, but you can see that hurt him all the way, the rest of the way, right? So little things that we can see in the data fairly quickly. And okay, perfect. So I'm going to jump out. I'm going to show you one more thing of the actual layout, and then one more data piece, and then we'll open it up for some quick questions. I have a bunch of tabs up here. These are all settable by you. They're user definable. I have a braking screen. If we were to be wanting to look at braking things and make them see some specific things the way you like to look at it, we can create these different tabs and then put the data that we want to see automatically. So you don't have to be on a tab and then add channels and take channels off of this one to make it work. You can actually save one that is speed is kind of my number one thing I always have. Here I've got all of the brake pressures, front and rear. I've got the brake bias in percentages of front bias, just to kind of double check the bias valve on the car, see if it's what you like. Where have you adjusted it as you've been driving? I've got longitudinal G's and I've got lateral G's. It's kind of a braking and what's happening and things like that. I've got a vehicle health page where maybe it's not you sometimes, but you certainly will be looking at your own data this way too. I've created a quick channel report that I can, with a single click, come in and look at all of my data, and I can see what my maximum speed was for each lap, maximum RPM, was there any over revs? This is fuel pressure, and I've just did a minimum fuel pressure of the car for the 4 laps. I've got an oil pressure, engine oil pressure. There was one there that was a little low. We might want to, if probably had a low RPM situation in a corner, but we would want to go check it. That 37 is a little low compared to the rest. You've got a engine coolant temperature, water temperature. What was the maximum? What was my minimum voltage? That's that third piece of driver performance, vehicle health. If the car doesn't finish, it doesn't help you as a driver. So somebody needs to be checking these things all the time, and may as well just do it as have a tab so that can be checked before you're even fully out of the car. If they're downloading the car, you certainly haven't finished a bottle of water yet. And all of these things can be checked, and the mechanics can be put certain things behind them and work on the things that need to be worked on. We might want to look at a split times report, all set up ahead of time, where you can look at each of these different corners that are adjustable if we wanted to change them, and understand how much time you spent in each one. What is the average value of all of your laps, the median, the best, put all those together, and we can come up with a lap time. Your best theoretical lap was a 124.4. The best lap this driver actually did was a 124.6. So within 0.2 of the best theoretical. Pretty darn good data, pretty good driver. And standard deviations and best rolling lap is when we take pieces all in a row of this. You actually turned them at just from start finish to start finish, which is the beginning of the split report to the end. That's what these lap times are. But in this particular case, the best stitching together of these lap segments into one full lap, it happened to be from the end of segment 8, which I think was over and about in right here. It ended up from that spot on the track through the start finish line and back to there. The driver actually turned a 24.62, and the best lap from start finish was only a 64. So it's only a couple hundreds better, but the software has the ability to find any spot on the track and crunch a lap time from there. Very helpful if you're in traffic a lot or you're trying to hide your lap times. Not something you're going to probably do here, but in some motorsports things, you may want to not let the competitors know how fast, so you run half laps and things like that. So the best rolling lap time can be good at that point. So all sorts of different ways. We can look at the scatter plot. That's the last thing I wanted to look at. I'm going to close some of these laps. I just wanted to show a couple of things here really briefly. If we're looking at a friction circle or a G-sum, some people call it a friction circle. It's an XY plot. We're plotting the forces that you are generating in the car laterally and longitudinally. And if we come in here and you can see the X here, I know it's probably not easy to see on your screen as our last little thing to work on. You as a driver, what I want you to be thinking of, or you should be thinking of as your, and I know a lot of you have experience either in sims or karting or cars, but as you hit your brakes and you're coming into a corner, this is dipping down. Let's pick turn 1. I'm going to zoom in on just this area. I'm going to come out just a tick more. So here we are. If you can see, the cursor is up here, where the cursor is here, again, dynamically linked. And right in this area, you see the speed beginning to degrade. The driver went onto the brakes, right? You'll see that come down. Braking is straight down on our screen. The driver maximized their braking right there, right? And it was at minus 1.49 Gs. Okay, all good. And then straight line brake, it's sitting here bumping around in this area, straight line braking, and then all of a sudden, boom, the driver puts some steering into it. And you can see that he has released the braking to start to add the lateral, right? And you can see it down here. You can see that the braking is happening. The braking was maximized down here. This is the lowest of this. It's right there. And then off the brakes a little bit. I would love to see if the braking was more come down here and sit down here. That braking longitudinal G should be flat, and then start the trade longitudinal for lateral. But the driver did it by releasing the longitudinal a little bit just as he starts to turn in. But what this gauge, some people will call this the display that shows you your lost grip or lost opportunity. And we create these curved lines here that are, if we're right here, this is 1.5 G. This line is 1.5 G. It's curved because it's the way the data lays on it. In a perfect world, it's hard, it's difficult to be perfect, if not impossible. But what you're shooting for, you should have your G-forces way up here under braking, straight line braking, and then you should be coming off your brake as you add your lateral. That's what the driver did here. But look how the amount of braking is all the way back to 0.75 and then is starting to turn in. This area that is empty in here, that is your lost grip. That is your missed time. That is your loss of opportunity for speed. If in a perfect world you would brake, and as you are releasing, you're adding lateral, but you're releasing longitudinal, and it should be in this nice little perfect circle, because the car is capable of cornering out here at 0.414, and it's capable of braking at 1.4. You should be able to trade off one for the other. That's the goal of you as a driver. You get the thing woed down, and then as you come off the brake pedal, you should be feeding steering, and this should be a nice fit. That's mathematical, right? Does the track have fall off? All of these things fit into it, right? Is the car loose on entry? You as a driver have to do things in order. If a car is loose on entry, you may have to back off of the lateral before you turn in. That's part of your job as a driver, to drive around whatever the problem is. But the next thing I would be doing is it the track that's making me do this? Is it the car? Or is this me as a driver? Should I be a little bit more conscious of of starting my turn in when I'm still hard on the brakes, and start releasing the brake pressure as I'm turning into the wheel, and not losing this this available grip that I did not use. So XY plots, very, very powerful tool. You are so busy right here as a driver, you don't even understand what you've done. There's so much of this is just you doing what you're doing, that it's very hard to even understand it in real time. Things are happening. It's all instinct to you at this point, but the data can help you understand that maybe you're leaving a little bit on the table. So that's what I wanted to kind of close with that one, and an XY plot, and share with you again that all of my screen layout here has been kind of set up in a way that you might find helpful. There is the link early on that said Race Studio 3 user profile in the chat. For watching this later in YouTube, there will be a link to the sample data, to the presentation that we're going to jump back to and close this out right now, and to the user profile. That's what we call them in Race Studio 3, for you to be able to grab that file and import it into here, so your screen will look the same as mine, have all these same settings. That might be helpful as you watch this video back and practice a little bit with that data when you get done. Okay, let's close this out real quickly, and then I'll kind of open it up for questions. We can jump back in if we want. I'm a few minutes later than I thought I would be, but let's jump into here. And it's kind of I've just been pushing and pushing and pushing, and the data is telling you all these truths, right? There is a website that I found years ago, and it's still active today. And I always say data doesn't lie, right? It's pointing us in the right direction. Well, the source of these three little slides I'm going to just quickly go through is tylervigan.com. He's got a page on his website. Never met the man, but he calls it spurious correlations. And data can get this way, and I love to show these because it gives you an idea. Yeah, data can take us down the wrong path if we're not thinking it through. So let's look at these and just understand that data can sometimes say some things that, if you're not thinking, might catch you. These graphs, kind of like data, this is showing the divorce rate in the state of Maine here in the States, and how it correlates with the per capita consumption of margarine. And if you look at these traces, you would say that those traces are that the divorce rate in Maine is happening because of the rate people are eating margarine. And it's just not true, obviously, but data can do this to you. In 2005, there was less people. Heck, there was less divorce rate in Maine when they ate less margarine. Be careful of data. Every once in a while, it will sneak up with you. If you have in your mind's eye that you know that I'm releasing the brake too early, you can probably find a corner in the data to do that. and you can allow your mind to drive the data instead of the data driving your mind. Be careful. Be careful. Here's another one. It's the total revenue generated by arcades. It correlates pretty darn well with the computer science doctorates awarded in the United States. That it has nothing to do with the two of these together. It's a spurious correlation, but it's data. Data can do funny things. Be very careful. Data can lie, or at least mispoint you down to the wrong road, right? And the last one, just these are all for fun, but people who drowned after falling out of a fishing boat with the marriage rate in Kentucky. See, some people think this one might be actually true, but again, just it's funny how data can do things like this. It has happened to me as somebody that's been doing data analysis for over 20 years. I have made the mistake of seeing something, getting it into my head that was what was happening, and I lost close to a half a day of chasing this thing that I thought I was doing before it finally dawned on me that I was kind of chasing my tail, and that I had gotten sucked into this pushing my own idea onto what the data was saying, and finding a spot where it actually said it. So be careful with the data. It is powerful tool, but it can take you down some roads if you force it to go where you want to go. So be careful with that. As you get into this sport a little bit deeper and you start using AiM a little bit more, we are a customer support company that happens to sell electronics, is the way that we like to say it. If you have needs, you're at the racetrack sometime, and you're here in North America, we have an 800 number that you can call, and we do nothing but have staff that are out at tracks, large events, all the time. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in, that we have a customer support focus here at AiM, and other AiM distributors do around the world as well. So we understand that it is an electronic product that needs a little bit of help sometimes to get you up to understanding it well enough to really make it sing. And we're here to help you with that. So keep that in mind. At the last Tuesday of every month, I would like to invite all of you. I'm going to, at the end of this, I'll have David email out, and we'll put it into the YouTube link as well. You have to register for these webinars that we provide every last Tuesday of every month. The next one, October 31st. Very close to the time that you'll be at Atlanta Motorsports Park, I understand. So you might not be able to make that one, but we do an hour-long talk with different people in the industry or different data analysis topics, where we dig into a smaller focused area of analysis, and dig in deep. So, and then we record every one of them. We put them out onto our YouTube site. So if you want to join that, you get an email the day before each one goes live. We do them at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We do them live. We do at that time to try to make sure we can capture some of the European market. AiM Italy is where all of our products are built, in Milan, and we like to have some of their expertise come and join us quite often with these webinars. So we needed to have it at that time of day, and we started them at the start of the pandemic. We started them within just a week or two of the pandemic. We did 2 a week through the entire first 6 months of the pandemic, and then back to 1 a week, and then in the last year or so we went to 1 a month. So tons and tons of information. If you want to go review them, go to AiM Sports on the YouTube, at the LearnFast YouTube page. If you just do search for AiM data, there are 225 videos, including all of our live webinars, are all out there. Tons and tons and tons of information is out there. And if you want to join and join us live on the Zoom webinars, we'll have a link sent out where you can click on that and join as well. Here's my contact information. Right there at the bottom, there's an email address. If there's anything I can do to help you fellas, I am more than happy to help. We do what we can do, right? And so if you have questions, I do one-on-one Zoom links where if you have some questions, we don't do a ton of like heavy duty training on that, but if you have 2 or 3 questions that as you're starting to learn, contact me. I'll work around the clock. We will throw a Zoom meeting together, just you and I, or a couple of you, whatever, and answer some questions about how to get the best out of the software. Always happy to help. You guys are embarking on a great journey, and we at AiM are happy to help give you some of the tools to do that in the correct way. So with that, I would like to, I know we went a little bit long, but I would love to, if there are any questions, David, you might want to jump in and answer, or the other David as well. Jump in. I'm willing to take a couple of questions as we kind of close this one out.
Roger, thank you for all of this fantastic support for this webinar, offering to help with future questions, even maybe some one-offs
Yeah.
is above and beyond, as you've always been. Guys, do you have any final questions for Roger at this time?
Hopefully didn't overwhelm you. So
Hey, David and Roger, good talking to you guys again.
absolutely, Nathan, good to hear from you.
Yeah, so I just want to mention this, as we all came from the sim racing world. You can import at least iRacing and ACC data directly into AiM if you guys want to try and mess around with the software before the event to learn it a little bit. It might even be rFactor 2 as well. I haven't messed with that personally.
All three.
Perfect. So you could throw a Radical session up in rFactor 2 and import it right in and get an idea of how to use the software at least. But I just wanted to mention that because I played around with it in the past as well.
Thank you very much, Nathan. There, I will include a link to the Davids, and they can send it out as well. We have a web page on our website that talks nothing but about the sim. It's got a document on how to set up your machine to bring the data in real time. You don't have to go do a post session, grab a file, convert it, and everything. That you can turn on a little very lightweight little program that AiM has built during the pandemic, again, because everybody was doing it, right? So we built that. You can turn that on whenever you fire up and run any of those three sims. The data will be being stored onto your desktop, your PC. And when you open up Race Studio 3, the data comes in just like it came out of a real car out at the track. You just don't even have to hook up the cable. It comes in, you open it up, and you are analyzing the data just directly from the software. The other thing that I will mention, since all of you do come from sim racing, that in your sim rig, we have the ability, and we can take some of what we call our strata gauges, but you can take a gauge out of your race car, or you can take a gauge purchased from your dealer, one of our non-recording ones, a little bit cheaper that way, and you can put the hardware right on. We've written all the USB drivers that you can plug it into your PC and tell it that there's an AiM dash there. And now your AiM dash is, the shift lights are working, oil pressure, speed, everything is working just like in the real car. So you can even use our hardware to be even more lifelike in your sim rig. So all powerful stuff, and we'll include a link to that page on the AiM YouTube, on the AiM website, so you can get an idea of how all that works. All free. Obviously the hardware costs money, but all the rest of it, all of the little piece of software to bring the data into Race Studio is free. The software is free, and you will have this. The link is in the notes there for you to download this data and this video file of what we just looked at for you to practice with as well. Thank you, Nathan, for mentioning that. I'd forgotten to do the sim racing connection that way. Okay, anybody else have a question or comment before we close this one out? Perfect. I appreciate all you guys coming. I hope and I wish you the best. And I know it's a journey, and you guys are well along that journey and doing well. You've beat out quite a few folks already, obviously, to get to where you are. David, anything else you'd like to say as we kind of close this one out?
Just gratitude, Roger, again. Appreciate it. And to all who joined today, thank you for making time. And for those who couldn't join that are going to be watching this, hopefully you'll at this point you've consumed quite a bit and learned quite a bit. But no, Roger, we appreciate it. Excited to use AIM data for Prodigy Week and beyond. So thank you, and enjoy your Saturday.
Absolutely, and same to all of you guys, and best of luck in the next couple of weeks as you keep on heading down this journey. And I look forward to chatting with you if you have any questions, and if not, I will be watching from afar and wishing you guys all the best. So thanks a lot, fellas, and we will call it a day here. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.